Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men number 82, cover dated December 1998. So this is part of a back and forth story between Uncanny X-Men and Adjectiveless X-Men. This is part 2 of The Hunt for Xavier, part 2 of 6. The cover is by Adam Kubert, pencils and inks by him, and colors by Chris Dickey. You can just make out his surname signature there beneath Adam Kubert's. And it features more or less a profile shot of the X-Men, the current team, and they're facing someone to the right of us in our view. And it almost feels like this should be a gatefold cover, and we should be able to open that out and see who it is they're attacking. But instead of that, we have here in the background, and again, this is the era of digital computer effects, a type of stamp of the visage or face, the helmeted face of Cerebro, the enemy who appeared at the end of issue number 80 of this particular title. And there's just almost like the implication of an infinity of him, that same image there in the background, something like a swarm, something that you could produce by virtue of computer technology. So the cover is intriguing, but like I said, it's a disappointment when you open it up and see that there isn't an image of who it is they're facing off against. There's a cover caption here, what is the secret of the two Xaviers? So that was something that came up at the end of Uncanny X-Men 362. And so two signals for Xavier have been identified, one in Russia, in the former USSR rather, and one in San Francisco. So this particular chapter of the storyline focuses on the former USSR, a forgotten glacial range in Tajikistan. Now that's interesting because I've just read and reviewed the first part, and the name of the area was Tajikistan, so I'm not sure which is the correct name or whether it's fictional. My thinking is, or rather my intuition, better to put it that way, is that it's a fictional former Soviet republic. But it is in the story one of the most unmerciful sights on the face of the earth. Now, unmerciful is kind of a strange adjective to use there. Wouldn't it be more natural to write merciless sight on the face of the earth? But anyway, let's continue. I do like the vertical panel layout here, as well as in the gutters we have the falling figures of Colossus, and this will turn out to be Gambit, and then zooming down after them, Rogue. And that's intercut with a close-up on this man and his pack animal looking at these figures hurtling towards him. And let's turn the page. We can see, so we have Colossus up there, and by the end of this sequence he's falling this way. Let's continue. Oh, by the way, this will turn out not to be the X-Men. This is something else. This is the antagonist, but we'll get to that in due course. So turn the page, and we've got a really cool double page spread there of Colossus and Gambit falling. I like the use of foreshortening by Adam Kubert, because Adam Kubert is the artist, as well as the snowshoes that Gambit is wearing. There's a lot of detail there. And the title of this particular chapter of the story is The Hunt for Charlie. So, and we'll see why there's a backwards or there, because it has something to do with a child that will make an appearance later in this issue. So the creative team, Joe Kelly and Adam Kubert, so script and pencils by those respectively. Rest of the creative team down here, John Dell and Jesse Delperdang. Jesse Delperdang, an alumnus of the Joe Kubert School of Cartooning. And so they're handling between them pages of Adam Kubert's pencils. And then on the colors, this is an interesting name, it's Richard, and because he was born in France, I'm going to pronounce his surname as Isanove, on colors, the digital colors here, and he does a fantastic job throughout this issue. Really like the work that he does on the glaciers as well as the sky there in the background. Fantastic colouring. And his colouring doesn't overwhelm the blackline art either, because some digital colorists in the mid to late 90s overwhelmed the blackline art, and it's always my preference to see all the detail of the hatching, cross-hatching, fine lines. That's my aesthetic preference always. So the X-Men are falling, whatever that was, has hit the old man and the pack animal. And here's Storm as well, chasing after the falling Colossus and Gambit. Yeah, so it's pretty cool opening to the story. Let's continue here. So we've got these diagonal panel layouts, something that Neil Adams used to do at the end of the 60s. And it is a device that any artist can use for in order to communicate dynamic situation, as is this particular one. So Rogue is reaching there after Colossus. She grabs him. She says, "I don't think Gambit would appreciate your armored form plowing through his back at 100 feet per second." So that's why she's gone for Colossus first. And here is Storm. And she's going to try and ensure that Gambit has a soft landing. He's about to receive a painful lesson in the law of gravity and in humility unless the good earth responds to my call. So she's sending down these hailstones, and Gambit there liked the choice to have him upside down. We're looking right up his nose and into the roof of his mouth there. And he says, "Enough, I'm sorry already. Less with the guilt, more with the saving. Share." So let's turn the page. And interesting layout here as well. We've got a 6-panel grid, a tier of 3 vertical panels on top and 3 on the bottom. And also something that I point out very often, a decision here to vary the layout by having the top part of this 5th panel be borderless. And I always think that that's an interesting way of varying an otherwise rigid grid type layout. So these hailstones create this powder of snow that he lands on, whomp there. And Storm says, "Goddess be praised, the hailstones atomized the icy floor of the chasm, leaving a cushion of powder." And Rogue says, "I bet he could have survived if he'd landed on his head." So there is romantic tension as ever between Rogue and Gambit. And she's having a little bit of fun at his expense. Colossus explains what the catalyst for the fall was. "The lesson for today, Tovarish," which means comrade in Russian. "Next time your extremely weighty teammate is doing reconnaissance on an icy precipice, do not leap on his back and yell chicken fight." So Gambit was being his roguish, playful self. He's back to that version of himself. And it was the precipitating incident for the fall. So he's coughing away there. Geez, try and bring some levity to the situation. "So how far off track did my little game take us?" he asks. "Oh well, seems I'm not a complete screw up, no." And that's because they've found the location where the signal is emanating from, the identity, a signal that is keyed to Professor X's mutant identity. So Rogue says, "I wouldn't exactly say that, Remy LeBeau, but you did save us a long climb down into this hole." And Colossus is amazed at the beauty of it. Of course, he's a native of the former USSR, Siberia specifically. He says, "It's beautiful. How could anyone have built such a magnificent structure here?" So it's interesting, like the architecture there, these onion domes, which is distinctive of the Russian Orthodox Church. It implies that this is some kind of monastery that's been hewn into the rock and ice of the chasm. And Storm says, the leader, "Steel yourselves, X-Men. The first leg of our trek is over, but we have many trials before us. For within this temple of ice may lie our missing friend and mentor, the man who is at the heart of 2 recent mysteries we've encountered. Here we begin our search for Professor Xavier." So Gambit's following in after them, and he says quietly to himself, regarding Rogue, "If only you knew, Rogue, just how deep this chill I'm feeling goes. Ain't just a shiver in the bones. Ever since Antarctica, I've been cold down to my soul, cold like death." Because he has made a bargain, a devil's bargain with an entity that is a type of gaseous parasite that resides within him and that pops out and that professes love for him, but we don't know the full story on that just yet. But look here behind his head, there's a flashing light, and it turns out to be a pair of eyes. And so the X-Men are being followed by something mechanical. Let's continue with the story here. Inside the ice temple or church or monastery, there's a man, and he's speaking an ancient Slavic tongue. And he says here, as he races towards these doors, "It's back. Our sentries have spotted it falling from the heavens. The creature has changed forms again, increasing its number as well." And then the man asks, "Please, will you ask her?" I assume he's saying what I think he's saying. And this child here in the background sitting on an altar says, "Yes, Renee, it's back for me." So these two we've seen before. Renee, now how is her surname pronounced? Macom or Majcom, and Nina, the psychic little mutant girl. We've seen them before in Onslaught Epilogue by Larry Hama, written by Larry Hama, and you'll find a review of that in the back catalogue of the channel's video reviews. So if you're curious about who these two are, do check out Onslaught Epilogue in the back catalogue. So Nina says, "Yes, Renee, it's back for me and Charlie, but we're going to stop them, Charlie and me. We're going to make them go away." So Renee says, "I pray so, child, I pray so." And Renee Majcom or Maycom, however her surname is pronounced, was an ally of Professor X's, and she's keeping guard over Nina. So here we have this layout again that Adam Kubert tried in the previous issue, and that sent me the wrong way. And it did it again this time around, because my reading of this layout was to go across the top tier of panels and then down to the bottom tier. But the way that one is supposed to read it is this way, and then down here, and then up here and across here. Okay, so they're in front of this elaborate, ornamented portal doorway, and Storm says, "Clearly there's been a battle here. If Charles is inside, he's seen some trouble." So we can see the damage, the blast damage on the door and around the doorway. And she says there, "And assuming that this handheld Cerebro unit is functioning properly, inside is exactly where the professor is." Now, handheld Cerebro unit, it's a bit of a mouthful, and I don't think it's necessary. Why not simply say portable Cerebro unit or just Cerebro unit, and let us infer from what we're seeing that it's handheld, that it's portable, you know? Anyway, back into the story. There still is this kind of banter between Rogue and Gambit. She says, "Hey Gumbo, I'm getting bored breaking your shoes. How about we share a little body heat to put you in a better mood?" But Gambit's cold to her. "Oh, thanks, Cher, but I need room to maneuver in case we see action. You understand." And Colossus there is watching this exchange. Now, Colossus, of course, has been a member of Excalibur for a long time, so he hasn't been around for all the developments between Rogue and Gambit, their ups and downs. Storm here whispers to Gambit, "Remy LeBeau, that was perhaps the single weakest line I've ever heard stutter from your lips." And he says, "They can't all be winners, Ororo." And Storm replies, "You've been avoiding Rogue since our journey began. What happened between you two?" So he says, "Nothing. It's still too soon," but he thinks to himself, "Right, a blind man could see I'm dying to wrap her up in my arms right now, but I can't. Not after what happened in Boston." That was in the previous issue. "Till I figure out a way out of that mess. Me and Rogue are no more for her own protection." So Rogue asks there, "Is it me, or was I just sniped for no reason?" And Colossus decides to get involved in the relationship by saying, "Rogue, I know it's not my place, but you're better off without him." So of course that's the wrong thing for her to hear. She says, "Excuse me, I don't remember asking for comments from the peanut gallery." Colossus says, "You didn't, but I'm a man who cannot keep his tongue when he sees a heart in distress and the scoundrel causing it. He's a free spirit, Rogue. He will never commit. You would do better trying to catch the wind just my opinion. And she thinks to herself, hand on hip, of course I know that, you big lug, but that's the best part and the worst part about loving him. So the ups and downs of the romantic, will they, won't they, will they ever get together between Rogue and Gambit continues. But back into the focus of this story, the hunt for Xavier. Storm here says, this Cerebro unit, though not as powerful as the one back at the Institute, is calibrated to Charles's mutant biosignature and most definitely registers his presence inside, if only faintly. So what happens here is Gambit decides to speed things up, kinetically charges some cards in order to blast their way in through the ice door. And Colossus says, what do you think you're doing, little man? Storm did not give the order. Gambit says, no, but she was about to, Frere, eventually. And Rogue sees what's inside and it's horrifying. Will you please stuff it and look? Oh my God. So there are all these monks that are dead. And who could have done it? What caused it? I believe we shall find the answers we seek, as well as the butcher responsible for this massacre beyond that barrier, says Storm. So here's a barrier at the end of the hallway, but also something outside is following them, is trailing them. And remember what the monk earlier said to Renee, that something has returned. So is that this here? And it's looking at them through computer eyes, identifying them. Interesting here concerning Rogue. Mutant designate Rogue, no other alias, because of course in this era we still didn't know her name. And meanwhile, in the bowels of the monastery. Now that's a weird expression again. Sometimes Joe Kelly comes out with some strange diction and phrases. Bowels of the monastery. Why not just simply say the depths of the monastery? Anyway, Renee here says, they're close, love. Are you ready? And Nina responds, yeah, I think. Just one last thing. So she asks here, looking through this doorway or portal, and there's light coming from it. Charlie, sorry to bother you, Charlie, but I need you one more time. So is Professor X through there? Meanwhile, the X-Men are at this monolith, this ice monolith, and it's got a shiny reflective surface. So they see themselves in it. And then Colossus puts his finger through it, and it opens. So that's really cool, really well done. And again, Richard Isanove doing excellent work on the computer digital coloring with the reflections and the distorted reflection there as Colossus puts his finger through the portal. I think it's really well done. Curiouser and curiouser, says Rogue, or Colossus perhaps. Nah, just smells like a trap to me. Alice, course. Can't be worse than hanging around out here with the dead, says Gambit. Ready or not, Professor, here come the cavalry. So this is kind of like our setup, and now we're going to get the payoff in the second half of this 22 pages of story and art. And something unexpected from Adam Kubert in the art department, but something that was possible at from the mid to late 90s, where you're in the era of digital scanning of art pages, and that's what we're getting here. We're getting a scan of Kubert's pencils, as well as it looks like watercolors here, and it conveys this strange topsy-turvy dimension that they've entered. There is the sound of a child taking a deep, determined breath, and then the world stops making fish. So they're in this absurd Dali-esque dimension. And look, Adam Kubert was so proud of himself there that he signed it AK. But that's also an indication that, there's no inker involved on these particular pages. He signs this one too in pencil. So you can see how sharp his pencils are, as well as the inventiveness of the crazy dimension that he's conveying here with the Soviet stars on Colossus's cheeks there, his baby cheeks. It's wild stuff. So, who is speaking here? I think it's Colossus. Yeah. What's happening? X-Men. Can anyone hear me? Or is that Storm? That's Storm that's saying that. Yeah, she's in a fetal position, upside down, with these little lightning bolts around her as well. Colossus here says, "Da, Storm, I can hear, but I can't move. No footing, And Storm, in her fetal position, says, I'm going to be sick. But Rogue is able to handle it. Hold on, Peter, I'm coming for you, she exclaims. Got you in my sights. And he asks her, how can you navigate this? And this is an interesting answer that Kelly's come up with. Truth is, once you've had 3 or 4 personalities at a time running in your skull, altered states of reality become second nature. If you all weren't in such bad shape, I'd actually be enjoying this. So she's able for this topsy-turvy psychedelic dimension. And Storm thinks that she can maybe help Gambit by using her powers, but instead she slams up against a barrier. And we've got this funny, weird sound effect, ladyfinger there, because everything is topsy-turvy and nothing makes sense. And outside, it's Nina that's causing it. And Rene asks, is it working? Have you stopped the creature? I don't know. I think I'm hurting it. Is this pain? She asks. No, it must be an attack, child. This monster has adapted. Ask Charlie for strength. He'll help. Meanwhile, in the foyer turned mass tomb, the antagonist walks up to the portal and is confused by it and pauses. And inside it has it says awaiting instructions. Let's get past the advertisement for Joe Kubert's school there, and we'll see what his son is up to here in terms of another inventive layout. It's like a kind of reel of film here for the gutters. It's almost suggesting that these are film cells, perhaps. See the little white dots there? But in any case, Gambit here is able to get his footing, and he asks Storm, are you all right? Did not know which way was up, but as soon as I cried out, the distortions in reality ceased. So why would that be? And Rogue has a theory. She says, in here, nothing makes sense, and if you were going to hide someone, why not pick a hiding spot that may not even exist? I have an idea. So outside, Nina says, Rene, I think they're going to get in. I got to push harder. Should I, Charlie, she asks. And then the place goes bananas again. We've got this, as I said earlier, like all this weird stretching and kind of Salvador Dali-esque imagery. It's very cool. The third person narration declares the answer comes as a tidal wave of unreality in which the minds, the bodies, perhaps even the spirits of the 4 X-Men become malleable things, susceptible to torments of an unimaginable nature. Yet as her teammates almost cease to exist as human beings, Rogue's fractured mind remains clear and fixated on one thought. If this is how it's going to end, instant old age in a living nightmare, she'll be damned if she doesn't go down without one last touch. So Gambit's on fire there. She touches his finger and it brings reality back. So what is the mechanism that allowed that to happen? Outside, Rene says, you're doing it, keep it up, child. Something's not right. Charlie, help me, says Nina. And outside the portal, we've got the Cerebro unit cataloging new information. There's a kind of like, how will I put it? A piece of the front of the portal has fallen off. So the barrier is breaking. And Storm asks Rogue, or rather, I think something confusing has happened here. Yeah, the tail of the speech balloon should be going this way to Gambit, who says, Rogue, share, what's happening? I'm on fire. And she says, it's us, Remy, us. Don't try to be logical. Just look at me and feel, Remy, feel. And then Storm gets it. So you can see the way that they're doing this in the art. This little panel here, which grows larger, inside the art is inked, whereas out around it, it's still in pencils scanned from the artboard with the watercolors, Isanove's watercolors. And here Storm thinks, by the goddess, Rogue is right, this place, based on non-logic, no visible weakness except when we show extreme emotion. My pain, Rogue's and Remy's feelings for one another, while our minds may be crippled, our hearts, and then she says aloud, our hearts will persevere, Open your hearts, X-Men. Your emotions are the key. And again, you can see this overlaid panel here where the pencils are inked in. So it's an interesting visual device that Kubert has come up with for conveying visually this dimension, and then when things begin to stabilize within the dimension as well. I think it's clever stuff. So what happens here is that in terms of opening their hearts and tuning into feelings, Storm tunes into her love for the surrogate family she leads, her new tribe. Peter Rasputin searches his heart for a love to shatter the false world around him, and he finds himself focused on loss, the loss of his sister, his little snowflake, to a foe his strong hands were useless against. That's the legacy virus. For one X-Man, at least, the task is easy. Her weapons against the pain is readily available, for it is an image that has kept her warm through many a cold night and dark moment, always within reach. The most gentle touch she's ever known, and a passion so intense the icy heart of Antarctica could not withstand it. So that's her love for Gambit. Great upshot there on her face. What about Gambit? What emotion does he tap into? Gambit's emotions flow as readily to him as Rogue's, but the cold hand that grips his heart could hardly be called gentle. Still, there's something to be said for the gut-churning power of fear, because here's that gaseous parasite that is somehow bonded to him because of a bargain he made in Antarctica, it would appear. So outside, we have the Cerebro unit and its computing paradoxical input, impregnable barrier losing integrity, processing, anomalous variable X-Men inside barrier, mutants powered sufficiently to defeat undefeatable barrier, must reconfigure to compensate, reconfiguring, accessing files, untargeted X-Men. So this is a great panel here with, again, the pencils and watercolors in the cracks of the barrier, and also the reflection of the Cerebro unit there in the cracked surface of reflective surface of the barrier. So here's Renee. She's worried. Child, what is it? What's wrong? And Nina says, I'm hurting them. The monster, he never got hurt before. This isn't him. Please, Charlie, can I stop hurting them now, please? So inside, Rogue says, Remy, tell me you were feeling the same thing I was. And he can't say it because, of course, it wouldn't be true. So she puts her fingers to his lips and says, forget I even asked. Better off I just imagine you did. And Storm says, now X-Men, strike with all the strength of your hearts and bodies, strike. So they break the barrier. It's a great shot there of everybody using their powers against the barrier. And there it's destroyed. And instead of seeing Charles Xavier, they see Renee and Nina, and of course the stuffed toy bunny. And she says, see, I told you, Renee, I'm real sorry I hurt you guys, but Charlie told me to before we knew you were real people. He's not the real Charles, so he makes mistakes, but he's my friend, and he helps me think what to do. So it's the bunny rabbit, the soft toy. He helps me keep away the monsters. And Rogue says, anyone else think we were better off in the mirror? And Nina continues, but you let him inside, the worst monster of all. And here we go. It's this Cerebro monster here. His name is Cerebro. Perimeter breached, target located, executing primary command set, secure Xavier, eliminate all opposition. So this thing is after them. Great design here, really kind of horrifying design on this creature here, with its spinal column going down into this electrical body. Yeah, and all the wiring here as well. It's intriguing stuff. Really, really well done. So I think that this was a pretty decent chapter of the overarching narrative arc. Better than the first chapter, I would say, in Uncanny X-Men 362. Great art by Adam Kubert. All of the inventive rendering of the dimensional prison that they found themselves in. That was all really well done and unexpected, and something that was made possible by the digital technology of the mid to late 90s. Here's the letters page. Couple of letters there, kind of interesting, but not interesting enough to say anything more about them. Next issue, the hunt for Xavier continues. So 2 parts of the storyline done, a third of the way through it, and the Xavier bio identity signal from the former Soviet Union, from this Tajikistan or Tajik, there was the 2 different spellings of it. I'm just going to call it Tajikistan now because it's easier to say. Proves not to be the true Charles Xavier, so we've got to assume he's in San Francisco, right? Anyway, there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Adjectiveless X-Men number 82. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.